Okay, we're going to read chapter 2 in your section of your and Dad's book. Elementary school. First day of school. I felt very grown up on my first day of school in September of 1931. You don't need to take me, I told Mother. You stay home with baby Joan and I'll walk with Jane. I learned which room is mine the day we registered. Mother agreed, which suited me fine. I was a big girl now. I failed to notice her misty eyes or the strange catch in her voice as she kissed me goodbye on the front porch. Her eyes followed us until we turned the corner and started up the hill. Then she turned her attention to her 11-month-old baby, who kept her so busy that she had little time to think about my new spirit of independence. We lived only 2 blocks from the 6th Ward Public Elementary School, located on high ground at the corner of Locust and Hellman Avenues.
Yeah, I had part of my schooling in that school.
I happily walked through the front door and entered the cloakroom. Miss Andrews' first graders could hang their coats there on hooks, take off their boots, and place other belongings on the shelf above. Then I walked through the inner door into my classroom. I adored Miss Andrews. Young and pretty, she made learning so much fun. Even though I wouldn't turn 6 until November, I eagerly looked forward to learning all I could. But she didn't take any nonsense. When she made and explained a rule, she meant for it to be obeyed. One of her rules was no talking in class. This is about when you were really sick. I didn't mean to disobey, but when a little boy near my desk said something to me, I forgot Miss Andrews' rule and answered him. Can you guess what happened? She
sent me home.
She didn't see him talking, but she saw me. Doris Ann, you know the rule, she announced, not giving me a chance to explain. Go to the cloakroom as punishment. Extremely embarrassed, I meekly obeyed.
First grade.
Each lonely minute seemed like an hour. Finally, I could take it no longer, so I quietly exited through the 2 doors by which I had entered not long before. Looking out the window just then, Miss Andrews saw me running down the hill toward home as fast as my little legs could carry me. A surprise awaited me when I reached home. I found the door locked and nobody there.
So I went next door.
Oh, Mrs. McBurley will take me in, I reasoned.
How do you spell that?
MC capital BURNEY.
Bernie.
McBurney. I reasoned slowly, making my way to her door. What's wrong, honey? She asked. I don't feel good, and Mother isn't home, I confided. I told the truth. I didn't feel good. I felt sick at heart and frightened. Sure enough, she kindly invited me inside. When Mother came home and heard my feeble excuse, you guessed it, I got a proper dose of Phillips milk of magnesia. You remember that?
Phillips milk of magnesia.
Do you remember her doing it, though, on that day? How I hated that stuff. It tasted like liquid chalk. Go lie down, she ordered, and I did. During lunch hour, mother heard the real story in a telephone call from Miss Andrews herself. Tell her to come back to school after lunch. Everything will be all right. When I arrived, some of the children hinted a frightful things to come. But I'm happy to say my teacher showed sympathy, and the afternoon passed pleasantly. What a relief. You can bet I thought before talking in class after that. More about school.
What was the, I thought about it, but talking again, but I didn't, huh?
Oh, he just says you can bet I thought before talking in class after that.
Mm-hmm.
I loved school and learned quickly. I liked the careful way my first teachers encouraged proper penmanship. We used lined paper and pencil to practice up and down strokes and the curves needed for writing. One exercise we did look rather like a banana. I wish more teachers today taught good penmanship or even how to hold a pencil properly. Spelling was great fun. In the second grade, I won a wonderful iron horse in a spelling bee and proudly displayed it in my bedroom. I often wondered what eventually happened to my cherished prize. With Mother's passion for sorting and disposing of unnecessary things, she may have donated it to the scrap iron drive during World War II.
Oh, mine have put it in the scrap.
Yeah, I did neat artwork, but I must say that I made better copies than original art. From the very beginning, I did well at language, arts, and reading. Our books belonged to the school system, and at the end of the school year, we had to erase any pencil marks in them so it would be clean for the next class. We had to pay for any damaged books. Joan scribbled with crayon in one of my reading books, much to my dismay. So after that, I was very carefully kept school books out of her reach. At recess time,
Joan used a crayon.
yeah, in good weather, the teachers sometimes took us for a walk, or we played on the school playground. I can't remember much equipment except for a seesaw and a merry-go-round that we started by holding onto a bar, running fast, and then hopping on. It could spin at dizzy speeds. On Halloween, we dressed in our costumes and paraded around the neighborhood at recess time.
At what time?
At recess time,
Recess.
yeah. The trapping game. Have you ever heard of trapping in school? Those who gave the wrong answer to a question had to move to the back of the row of seats, with those ahead moving up one seat. We tried our best to stay at the front when we got there. This game encouraged children to study. Growing up with Sister Joan, nearly 5 years after my birth, my sister Roberta Joan was born on October 4, 1930. I enjoyed playing with her. After learning to walk, Joan often tripped over her own feet. So Mother enrolled her in a dancing class to help her develop coordination and grace. I remember the canary, C-A-N-A-R-Y, and pirate costumes. Canary and pirate costumes Mother made for recitals. Joan loved adventure.
Primary? No.
We did not move often, but I remember the day she climbed through the bathroom window onto the front porch roof of the house on East Catherine Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she was talking about this the other day. That gave us quite a scare. As soon as Mother coaxed her inside, Joan got a whipping, so she wouldn't try that stunt again. She also had chicken pox when we lived there. Another time, 5-year-old Joan convinced a little neighbor boy to walk way out Henderson Avenue Extension, a busy highway toward Aunt Maggie's house. She wanted to prove that her aunt lived further away than his aunt did. After walking about a mile, they stopped at the Paxton farmhouse for a drink. In the meantime, Mother missed her, notified Dad, and suggested calling the police. Aunt Molly called to tell Mother that she had taken the children to their intended destination where Mother could pick them up. Joan and I later shared a bedroom, sleeping in twin beds with spool design headboards, sharing a chest of drawers and a kidney-shaped dressing table
Kidneys?
with a skirt and a triple mirror that sat on top. I always maintained that Joan seemed part rabbit because she loved munching on celery and carrots while in bed.
She did.
Wow. I moved to Grandma's house. Grandma Brownlee needed Mother's help after Aunt Ruby died, and Uncle Harold Brownlee and 3 of their boys came to live there. So we too moved to my grandparents' house
4
on
people.
Henderson Avenue. We occupied half of the downstairs, a kitchen and a living room, and 2 bedrooms upstairs. Our kitchen sported a new General Electric refrigerator with a round condenser on top. It looked very modern indeed compared to Grandma's oak icebox.
She had to, they had to watch for the truck that came by with blocks of ice. You can get so much to put in your refrigerator.
Nice. Grandma displayed a card in her front window to let the iceman know how many pounds of ice she needed. He pulled back the burlap covering, cut off the proper size block of ice, and placed it inside the icebox. We children gathered
In the
around.
top.
Yeah, interesting. We children gathered around the back of the truck to be sure the little ice chips wouldn't be wasted. You ate ice chips.
They knew how to break it about the right size.
Okay, we children gathered around the back. Okay, we got that. A family member had to remember to empty the drip pan underneath the icebox so it wouldn't overflow. My tiny bedroom at the top of the stairs provided a good view of the backyard and a shed where I liked to play house. Cousins Jim and Charles slept in the attic, which they reached by going through my grandparents' room. When Grandpa monopolized the one bathroom in the house, we often pleaded with him, "Please hurry." I transferred at the beginning of the 3rd grade to Clark School at the corner of the Jefferson and Maples Avenue, just a few blocks from my grandparents' home. I can remember Christmas sings in the big lobby.
Christmas what?
Sings. Must be
Oh.
like sing-alongs.
Uh,
The upper grade building, located just behind it, faced Allison Avenue. The playground between buildings also provided a place for recreation and games in the summertime. We played jacks there a lot. Ruthie Doak, a classmate and friend subject to epileptic seizures, lived just 2 doors from us. For several years at school, we never knew when she might end up on the floor having convulsions and in danger of biting her tongue. This frightened some of the students, so her parents finally decided to remove her from school.
She threw fits.
Yeah. Ruthie and I played together a lot, which made her happy as long as she kept winning. When losing, she always found some excuse to go home. We also enjoyed swinging and singing on our large porch swing songs like I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles.
I'm forever blowing bubbles. Bubbles in the air.
I don't think you ever taught me that song. And a tisket, a little yellow basket.
Yeah. A trisket, a tasket, little yellow basket.
Oh, it's a tisket and a tasket. Other games we played back in the 1930s are still available today. We liked Tiddlywinks, Tiddlywinks,
I don't get that one.
Dominoes, Checkers,
What was the first one?
Tiddlywinks.
Tiddlywinks.
I don't know what that is. I don't remember ever playing that.
Mm-hmm. That was before you were born.
But dominoes, authors, Old Maid, fish, bingo, and pickup sticks.
Well, my uncle's wife died and left 2 boys for him to take care of. And they were older than, 2 of them were older, and one was younger. But my grandmother, no wonder she died young.
We also enjoyed working jigsaw puzzles, just like I enjoy now. What did we do for outdoor fun?
For what?
Outdoor fun. I filled a wash tub with water and played with putt-putt boats, filled with a little can of Sterno.
Oh,
We jump rope.
that made the little boat go around.
Cute. We jump rope to the rhyme. 1, 2. Remember? 1, 2, buckle.
Oh,
My
buckle your shoe.
3, 4.
Shut the door.
Right. 5, 6.
Pick up sticks.
Right. 7, 8. Lay them straight.
Lay them straight.
9, 10.
Big fat hen.
Right. So you taught me that one anyway. I know that one. We played tag, hide and seek, hopscotch, and roller skated on the sidewalk. We didn't outgrow our skates then, but used a skate key to loosen and tighten a nut so we could adjust the length.
We didn't outgrow.
You didn't outgrow your roller skates.
Oh, roller skates.
Because they were adjustable back then. Lost my train of. The other end of the key adjusted the toe clamp, and the leather strap buckled around our ankles. We skinned our knees sometimes, but they healed. You must have not worn knee pads. Kids wear knee pads now, in case they fall. On warm, rainy days, I damped up the rainwater flowing down along Summerlee Avenue and played in my bathing suit. On snowy days, we went sledding. The police blocked off certain streets so we wouldn't have to worry about traffic. Well, that's nice. For you guys. Boys had fun too. My boy cousins wore knickers, short, loose trousers gathered in at or just below the knee, and high top leather shoes. They took great delight in teasing me. Marbles became a passion with them and their friends.
Who'd they like to teach? Tease?
You. Some boys played for fun, others for keeps, and a few more dominance. They rode scooters, not motorized like today, and Yankee jumpers, and played with handmade guns and hoops.
Handmade
Guns.
Gun, yeah.
I suppose I tried them all. They built a Yankee jumper by nailing a 10-inch 2x4 upright on a barrel staff, then added a small board for a seat. It served as a mini sit-down ski for snowy weather. We did not have bicycles. Money was scarce, and my dad said, "Sorry, but no bike. So much traffic on our busy street makes it too dangerous." We pleaded, "What about the alley?" "No, not even in the alley."
That was down below the garage.
The outdoor steps leading to the cellar door were covered by sloping double doors designed to keep out the rain and snow. We had great fun running up and sliding down those doors. Nearby
To
stood
the basement.
Nearby stood a pump where we could pump water from a well. Sometimes it needed to be primed with a cup of water before it would work. It took muscle and patience,
Tuned, maybe.
but the water tasted good and refreshing. This one's about a broken tooth and potpourri. While still in elementary school, I tumbled down the back porch steps. My face hit the cement walk with a thud, breaking off a big corner of one of my upper front teeth. "It hurts," I wailed. "And how can I go to school looking like this? I'll be so embarrassed." Mother gave first aid and comforted me. God healed my lips, and my friends showed sympathy. Our dentist capped the tooth, and I nearly forgot the incident until one night years later. While in college, I had to have it pulled due to swelling because of an abscess. Reading books became a favorite pastime. Some favorites were Heidi, Little Women, and Bobbsey Twins series, and Uncle Arthur's bedtime stories. After school, we turned on our favorite radio programs, Little Orphan Annie, Jack Armstrong, The All-American Boy, The Lone Ranger, and Amos and Andy. We listened carefully to learn how
Amos and Andy.
Amos and Andy. We listened carefully to learn how many Wheaties box tops or Ovaltine seals we needed to send, and to get a secret decoder of some other necessity.
We say box tops.
Yeah. A car hit my pet kitten while I was away from home one day. My loving boy cousins couldn't wait to break the news when I returned. "The cat's dead! The cat's dead!" I thought my heart would break. Joan and the boys shared custody of a cute little brown dog named Tinker.
Tinker.
But alas, he disappeared one day, probably the victim of a hit-and-run driver. At various times, we care for goldfish and miniature turtles. A 3-cent stamp delivered a first-class letter, and a 1.5-cent or later, a 2-cent stamp provided sufficient for a second class, unsealed envelope or greeting card. Penny postcards cost just that, 1 penny. The postman delivered the mail twice daily. Wow. And more often at Christmas time, to the mailbox next to our front door. The post office delivered the neighborhood mail in bulk to a storage box, and then our postman sorted it and walked his route. He became our friend. In the 30s, doctors made house calls even at night if necessary. Those suffering from a communicable disease such as measles, scarlet fever, or mumps remained at home for the duration of their sickness, sometimes for as long as 2 weeks. A health department employee posted a quarantine sign on the front door to warn visitors. How well I remember the time I contracted the measles. Cousin Robert, several years younger than I, came to my darkest room for a visit. He jumped up and down on my bed.
Come to my darkest room?
Came to my, darkened room, sorry. My darkened room.
It was on the second floor at the foot of, there was a door on the first floor on the left, and then there was one where you could enter where the heat would come up from the furnace down the basement.
Oh.
Yeah.
He jumped up and down on my bed, and the wooden slats, coral springs, mattress, and I all ended up on the floor. So you probably weren't very happy.
He was younger than I was.
In the 7th grade, we walked to Washington High School for domestic science classes. In sewing,
8th grade.
In sewing classes, we each made a white apron and a cap, hemmed tea towels, and learned various stitches. In 8th grade at the high school building, wearing our little white aprons and caps in cooking class, we studied weights and measurements and learned to make basic white sauce, macaroni and cheese, etc.
To make what? Macaroni and cheese?
Yeah, you make a white sauce.
Oh.
Yeah. That served as part of our junior high experience, or as it transitioned to our senior high school. I always walked the 3/4 of a mile to the high school, never thinking of spending 10 cents on streetcar fare when I had 2 good legs.
And Joan, 5 years later than I started, she wanted the money so she could ride the bus
Oh,
or the streetcar.
oh,
Yeah,
hmm.
but I walked.
Well, you're both walkers today, though. Fashion. We always wore dresses, skirts, blouses, and sweaters to school. Never shorts or slacks. Blue jeans hadn't yet arrived on the fashion scene. Of course, on snowy days or in bitterly cold weather, we'd wear knee socks and snow pants and a scarf, hat, and gloves. I wore Oxfords and then dirty brown and white sandal Oxfords when they came into style. I particularly remember two really bright sweaters I wore. One was,
Sweaters?
chartreuse green, and the other a bright rose color, quite dazzling. You still look good in rose. A pretty peasant blouses and broomstick skirts later became popular. Mother made me a pretty pink rayon skirt one year. I got caught in a heavy rainstorm one day on my way home from school, and it shrunk to a size of a mini skirt. Ooh, Mother. You arrived home in a mini skirt. I experienced my first permanent wave at age 12. The strong solution reeked of ammonia. As the beautician rolled my hair on large steel rollers and attached each one to an electrical cord dangling from a canopy.
So I got a permanent.
Then she flipped the switch for heat, and the burning and dabbing, the runny solution began. The whole thing reminded me of an instrument of torture. I usually admired the result, but was grateful to Tony and other companies who later invented the home permanent cold wave kits. Did you like permanents when you were young, huh?
I guess.
I determined to do my very best and usually earned good grades as a result. One teacher in elementary school, however, gave me quite low marks, which puzzled me, for I always completed my homework. At one time, I needed treatments for extreme nervousness.
For nervousness?
Yeah, bordering on St. Vitus dance. I would walk along with Mother
Shaky.
uptown and involuntarily stick out
My tongue.
my tongue at some passerby, who probably considered me very imprudent. I didn't even realize what I had done. Perhaps this carried over somewhat into the classroom, and the teacher labeled it as inattention. Later in life, blood tests revealed hypoglycemia, or low blood sugar, perhaps a long-standing ailment. A careful diet corrected the problem. Okay.
I'd stick my tongue out. I didn't mean any bad thing about it.
Ethnic or racial
Nerves.
prejudice never entered my mind. In second grade, a little black girl named Pansy consistently arrived late for school. I felt so sorry that her parents didn't care enough to
I
teach
think
her the
that
value
was
of time.
Second grade or something.
I also liked to visit in the home of a Greek girl who lived near Sixth Ward School. When we lived on Henderson Avenue in Tyndale, I often walked to school with a
Tylerdale.
Tylerdale, with a black girlfriend named Pearl, a really nice girl. But I couldn't understand why some others seemed antologists. After
I don't get that.
Antagonistic.
Atomistic? No, I don't know.
Atomistic. Sounds good. After meeting several black girls when I went to visit Grandma Beringer and having to step off the sidewalk to pass them, I said to myself one day, enough is enough. I took my rightful share of the walk. They moved over and gave me room to pass, and we had no further trouble. I learned now to be intimidated and that I needn't need fight to have equal rights. Our neighborhood had people of Italian, Polish, and Eastern European descents, as
What's
well
the third one?
European
Oh.
descents, as well as family of blacks. Many attended St. Hilary's Catholic Church down the street. We acted friendly to all and associated with those having good moral principles. There was a Polish family called the Wienckes. What's the name of that family? The Polish family. Winsex.
Winsex. They own across the street a grocery store,
Oh,
and their name was Winsick.
oh, Winsex. Ran a neighborhood grocery store across the street. They were very kind to children who stood too long in front of the penny candy case, trying to make up their minds when we asked, "How many of those do you get for a penny?" They often helped us decide. We skipped home, happily chuckling a little paper bag half full of candy for our only 5 cents. We could buy groceries on credit and pay once a month. They had an account book with a page for each customer. Annie, the daughter, watched and listened, and they knew all the neighborhood business.
They knew the neighborhood business. Yappity yappity yap.
In my 8th grade year, my grandmother died at age 63. Wow.
What is it? 5'3"? 53?
63.
63. She's the sweetest lady.
As a result of a stroke. At such a sad time, I took a few days off from school, quite unusual for me. In those days, funeral wakes took place in the person's home, lasting 3 days or more. A black bow or funeral wreath hanging on the front door signified a death in the family. A close neighbor took up a collection in the neighborhood to buy a basket of flowers. Friends and relatives visited to pay their respects, invariably bringing a love gift of food.
Of what?
Of food.
Food.
Yeah. The funeral home furnished a hearse to take the casket to the cemetery. The cars could be rented from them for family and others who had no transportation.
There were cars that did that.
They could rent cars if they didn't have a car. During the 1930s, the Great Depression affected nearly every family in the nation. 1 out of every 4 households applied for relief to get some financial help from the government. Many people were jobless. President Franklin Roosevelt instituted many government programs such
Franklin Delano
Roosevelt,
Or-
such as the WPA, which is the Works Progress Administration, and the Civil Conservation Corps.
That was during the war.
These workers improved our national parks during this time and built roads, bridges, schools, and federal offices. FDR also signed the Social Security Act, which still helps
Who's
people
FDR?
today.
Franklin Delano.
Oh yeah, Roosevelt. Okay. Signed the Social Security Act, which still helps people today. I am thankful that We did not go hungry, and neither did our grandparents, but we ate our share of navy beans, potatoes, cornmeal, and rolled oats. We lived just a few blocks from the railroad track, so hungry vagrants, Vagrants, must have been
Grangerettes.
just people that were hungry often knocked at our back door, hoping for a meal.
Yeah, that's true.
We always shared what food we had, and some men offered to do a little work to show their appreciation. We gave them their meals on the back porch at a safety measure, however, and did not let them come into the house. Although never out of work, Daddy earned only a small salary. Mother kept her singer sewing machine humming, making clothes for us, and I wore lovely hand-me-downs from Cousin Catherine when they fit around my ample preteen waist.
My dad's older brother. Used when he got married, he moved to Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
Steubenville, Ohio.
Oh. Hmm.
Yeah.
Chubby clothes made me look fatter, so Mother made my dresses. I remember getting impatient at times, having to stand so long while she measured and pinned up the hems.
I don't get that.
You got impatient when she was trying to pin up your hem. You had to stand still,
Oh.
and you don't stand still very well. Yeah. Farm families, when choosing their cattle feed, selected the cotton sacks with the prettiest designs so they can use them to make dresses, aprons, shirts, boxer shorts, sheets, and pillowcases.
The sacks that you bought full of stuff.
They make clothes out of them, huh?
Yeah.
Nice. This is Joan at age 6 and Chubby Doris Ann at age 11. So I'm going to show it. Okay. You see it? It's Joan and Doris Ann.
Click, I think you have to have something that takes a picture of it.
It sees it in there. Okay. Boy, this is a long chapter too. Times were tough, and everywhere and everyone tightened their belts, shopping for food because a potential hunt for bargains to make the family budget stretch through each week. Most meats and cheeses cost 20 to 30 cents a pound. Butter sold for 28 cents, and potatoes cost 2 cents a pound. For our Saturday night entertainment, we ventured uptown to the stores on Main Street, amusing at how many of our friends we met there. We bought a bag of candy at Murphy's or across the street to a
Murphy's 5 and 10 cent store.
across the street to Isley's. Is that what it's called? Isley's? Isalys.
Isley's.
Isley's.
That's where you got ice cream cones.
For an ice cream cone or a condite bar.
For how much?
Oh, it didn't say.
Didn't say.
Women's clothing costs.
5 cents maybe.
Yeah, women's clothing costs $6.98. Oh, no, the cloth coats cost $6.98. A wool dress was $1.95, and a pair of leather shoes were $1.79. Just $11 would buy a men's overcoat or a wool suit, and a shirt or silk tie sold for 50 cents.
This is printed, huh?
The biggest, a doll buggy cost $4.98. A sled was $1.50. A tricycle, $3.98. And a catcher's mitt was $1.19.
And what was that?
A catcher's mitt.
Oh, for ball.
The biggest problem came in finding the money to buy these things at all because of low wages, or none at all. The Monopoly game first came on the market in 1935, the year I turned 10. Parker Brothers sold 20 million sets in 1 week. Wow. If people had no money to travel, they could play Monopoly at home. The movie Mutiny on the Bounty won the Oscar for the year's Best Picture. Popular movie stars Shirley Temple, Will Rogers, Clark Gable, Fred Astaire, and Ginger Rogers drew crowds at the theater.
I think Fred Astaire danced. I don't know. Tap.
New radio shows that year included your hit parade top musical tunes, Dick Tracy and Fibber McGee and Molly. Fibber McGee and Molly. Television was still in the future. The 1930s proved difficult for many, but we had a lot of fun during those days too. We sang memorable new songs such as It's a Sin to Tell a Lie, Pennies from Heaven, and Deep Blue, and silly songs too, like the Flat Foot
Flugie.
Flugie.
Flatfoot Flugie.
And three little,
He was a dancer, maybe.
and the three little fishies. Big band music, and the Charleston game popularity. 1939 produced Gone with the Wind and Wizard of Oz. That same year, the Great Depression officially came to an end. A real code of ethics reigned during my youth. A person's word served as his bond. Honesty became the only policy. Tell the truth, even if it hurts, and move on. People seldom locked their doors. A person could leave the ignition key in his car overnight with no fear of it being stolen.
I didn't understand. Just tell me.
Oh, that you could leave your key in the ignition and no one would steal your car or even lock your
Now
doors.
you never know.
2 streetcar liners operated in Little Washington.
Pittsburgh was, one was local and one was.
Also, an Interbahn line ran between Washington and Pittsburgh. The Jefferson and Maiden line, only 2 short blocks from our house on Henderson Avenue, went past the high school, the city shopping area, and to the swimming pool at the Washington Park. We often went swimming there. The Bew Street line ran between East and West Washington.
Spell that street.
B-E-A-U.
Bow.
The Bow Street
Bow Street.
line. Okay, when the conductor reached the...
I think that one ended at the swimming pool, Bow Street. We think nothing of walking that far.
When the conductor reached the end of the line, he transferred the fare box and the control lever to the other end of the car. Next, he reversed the crane seat back so passengers could face forward. Finally, he went outside to move the trolley pole so it would connect properly to the overhead electrical wire.
Yeah, when he got to the end of the place, like at the park, he had to go out and fix it so it's ready to go back the other way.
Oh.
It had a wire thing on top of the streetcar.
Okay. Whether I read that
You're
all or
getting
not.
more.
The brass button on the floor at each end clanged a warning whenever the conductor stepped on it. And lots of trolleys. Going to church. We used the streetcar often for going to town and to church when we met in the Old Fellows Hall on Chestnut
Odd Fellows. That was
Odd Fellows.
Yeah, the Odd Fellows had the second floor of one of the buildings in town. Yeah.
Wow. On Chestnut Street before the Adventist Church on North Main Street was built. My dad used it for going to work too. Speaking of church reminds me of some very dedicated Christians.
About what?
Dedicated Christians. Della Kordek, a light-skinned black lady, faithfully taught the children's Sabbath school class.
She did. Yeah, she was a Sabbath school teacher, and they all loved her.
We loved the Bible lessons and learned our memory verses. On the 13th Sabbath, we children performed in the adult Sabbath school, repeating all the memory verses for the quarter, reciting poems and singing songs. Everyone enjoyed this. At Christmas time, Mrs. Kordek always gave each child a little book and a pretty box filled with candy. She cared for 2 foster children, one of whom was my friend Esther Kimmy.
Kimmy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shh, it's a secret. Shh, it's a secret. That's your next paragraph or next section. Most adults in those days avoided discussing personal subjects with their children, such as sex. I must admit that my mother didn't properly prepare me for the time when my body would change from that of a child to a young woman. While visiting relatives in Steubenville at that time,
Steubenville, Ohio.
I wondered what could be wrong with me.
That's true. That's when I got my first.
Okay. Fortunately, Aunt B came to my rescue. She provided the necessary supplies and relieved my fears of sickness, of impending death. She told me that menstruation was a normal part of growing up.
Menstruation.
It was a normal part of growing up. Next, let me tell you more about my parents, grandparents, and family life. Yeah, here's the picture of the trolley, but you
Picture of what?
the trolley, but I'm sure you can picture it in your mind, right? You can see it on the screen when you watch it on TV.
Is that connected so it'll?
Yep,